Have you ever stopped to think about how much we believe we know about ourselves, about our past, where we came from, where we might be going?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? We have these narratives.
Exactly. But what if, a deeper look at history could just completely flip that understanding on its head?
It's a really powerful thought. So many things we assume about, like human nature or progress, are actually pretty recent ideas. Or they're based on stories we've been telling ourselves for, well, millennia.
And that's exactly what we're doing today. We're setting off on this incredible deep dive into the epic story of Homo sapiens. We pulled together some really fascinating stuff from some amazing sources that, honestly, they make you rethink everything.
Think of it as a shortcut, maybe. A way to get a handle on humanity's biggest moments, those huge leaps we made.
And maybe more importantly, the hidden costs that came with them, the stuff we don't always talk about.
Right. We'll be digging into those key moments that really shaped us. From our earliest ancestors way back, right up to thinking about our potential future.
And the big goal here is to unpack what all these changes really mean for you, listening right now, trying to make sense of this complicated world. We'll look at the big picture, but also those surprising little details.
Yeah, those details are often where the real insights are hiding.
Okay, so let's kick things off. Let's talk about the price we pay for being smart. Our brains, right?
Yeah.
They're amazing, obviously, but they cost us a lot.
Oh, they absolutely do. It's actually kind of staggering when you look at the energy they demand. I mean, think about it. This organ, it's only, 2 or 3% of our body weight?
Tiny, yeah.
But it uses up a quarter, 25% of our energy when we're just resting, compared to other apes whose brains only need about, say, 8%. Well, it's a massive difference.
25%. That's a jumbo drain, like you said.
Yeah.
So how did early humans even fuel this supercomputer in their heads? What was the trade-off?
Well, the sources point to a really interesting trade-off. Two main things, really. First, to feed that hungry brain, early humans had to spend way more time finding food, just constantly looking for calories.
Makes sense.
And second, there was a physical cost. Their muscles actually atrophied. It's like evolution forced this budget cut. You divert energy from your biceps, basically, and send it straight to your neurons.
Wow. So less muscle, more need to hunt and gather. We literally traded brawn for brains.
Pretty much, yeah. Less brute strength, more cognitive power, and a constant need for food.
Okay, so with these powerful, energy-hungry brains, sapiens started moving around, 70,000 years ago, out of East Africa?
That's right. First into the Arabian Peninsula, it seems, and then spreading pretty quickly across Eurasia.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because Eurasia wasn't empty.
Not at all. That's the key. Other human species were already living there, thriving, in fact, like the Neanderthals.
Which brings us to this huge historical puzzle. What happened when sapiens met these other humans?
It's one of the biggest questions, really, and there are basically two competing stories, two main theories.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, you've got the interbreeding theory. This one paints a picture of, connection, mingling. As sapiens moved out, they met and, bred with the local populations they encountered.
So sapiens meet Neanderthals in the Middle East and Europe, and they mix.
Exactly. And we need to ditch the old caveman stereotype here. The sources are clear. Neanderthals were tough, muscular, yes, but they also had big brains, maybe even bigger than sapiens' brains on average.
Right, not just brutes.
No, they were adapted to the cold. They used tools, fire, hunted skillfully, and importantly, they seem to have cared for their sick and injured. We find Neanderthal skeletons with healed major injuries, suggesting others helped them survive.
That's fascinating. So if this interbreeding theory is right,
then today's Eurasians aren't pure sapiens at all. We'd be carrying a mix of sapiens and Neanderthal genes. And similarly, if sapiens met Homo erectus further east, maybe modern East Asians have some erectus ancestry too. It's a story of mixing.
Okay, that's one possibility. What's the other side of the coin?
The other side is the replacement theory. And this one's, it's a much darker story. It suggests incompatibility, maybe even, revulsion between the groups, possibly even conflict, maybe genocide.
Why? Was the thinking there?
The idea is that sapiens and other humans were just too different. Anatomically, maybe their mating habits, maybe even how they smelled. Just not much sexual interest there.
So they just didn't mix.
Or even if they did, picture a Neanderthal Romeo and a sapiens Juliet, this theory argues their children probably wouldn't have been fertile. The genetic gap was just too wide by then, like horses and donkeys making mules.
Oh, okay. Sterile offspring.
Right. So in this view, the populations couldn't really merge. Sapiens just replaced the others. When the Neanderthals died out or were killed off, their genes vanished completely.
So under the replacement theory.
Then all humans alive today trace their ancestry back exclusively to that group that left East Africa 70,000 years ago. We'd all be pure sapiens.
Wow. Two completely different origin stories. Do we know which one is right?
Yeah. Well, the genetic evidence is still being debated and refined, but it leans towards some interbreeding having happened. But the extent is unclear. It's not a simple either. It really forces you to think, though, about what human even means and how connected or separate we really are.
Yeah, it definitely does. Okay, moving on from our bodies and our migrations, let's talk about the mind, the cognitive revolution. This sounds huge. Around 70,000 years ago again.
Yes, roughly the same time period. And this is where, as one source puts it so well, history declared its independence from biology. It wasn't just about being smarter individually. It was about two massive new abilities.
Okay, what were they?
First, the ability to cooperate flexibly in very large numbers, not just with family or your small band, but with thousands, even millions of strangers.
Right, which other animals can't really do on that scale.
Exactly. And second, the ability to innovate social behavior rapidly, to change how societies function much faster than genetic evolution would allow.
So it's not just raw intelligence.
No. I mean, 1-on-1 or even 10-on-10, the sources say we're embarrassingly similar to chimps in many ways. But try putting 1,000 chimps in, say, Times Square or Wall Street. It'd be chaos, absolute pandemonium.
Right, whereas humans gather in huge crowds, build cities, run global corporations.
Precisely. And what allows that, according to the sources, it's this mythical glue. Shared stories, shared beliefs, shared ideas, stuff that doesn't physically exist but that everyone in the group believes in. Think nations, gods, money, human rights.
Imagined realities.
Exactly. Imagined orders, the sources call them. This is the secret sauce. It allows us to build trade networks, political institutions, massive celebrations, things far beyond the capacity of any other animal.
And this connects to tool making too, right? It's not just that we make tools.
It's how we use that ability, scaled up by cooperation. Think about it. A flint spearhead? One person, maybe a couple of friends helping, can make one in minutes.
Simple enough.
But a modern nuclear warhead. That takes millions of strangers cooperating. You need miners digging uranium in one country, physicists doing complex calculations in another, engineers building components somewhere else, all coordinated.
All linked by this shared project, this shared belief in the goal or the nation or the company.
Exactly. It's the difference between basic craft and global complex systems, all built on that imagined glue.
Okay, so if these imagined orders are so powerful, how do societies actually get people to believe in them? I mean, they're not real in a physical sense.
Good question. The sources suggest two main strategies. First, and this is crucial, you never admit it's imagined. You insist it's an objective reality. It was decreed by the gods, or it's a law of nature. It's not just Hammurabi's rules, it's divine justice. It's not just Jefferson's idea. It's a self-evident truth that all men are created equal.
So you anchor it in something seemingly external and undeniable.
Right. And second, you educate everyone thoroughly from birth. You weave these principles into everything. Myths, legends, songs, art, architecture, fashion, etiquette. Every aspect of culture reinforces the imagined order.
Like the example of rich kids wearing jeans today.
Yeah, that's a great example from the source. Today, it's cool for wealthy people to wear what was originally workwear. But back in the Middle Ages, a young nobleman would never have been caught dead in a peasant's tunic. The social hierarchy, the imagined order of class, was just too rigid, too deeply believed.
It's incredible how powerful these ideas are. They can even create totally contradictory systems, right? Like Hammurabi's Code versus the Declaration of Independence.
Exactly, a perfect contrast. Hammurabi's Code around 1776 BC in Babylon. It's built on the principle that people are fundamentally unequal. There are superiors, commoners, slaves, and the law reflects that hierarchy.
Like the example where if a nobleman kills another nobleman's daughter,
the killer's own daughter is executed, not the killer himself. Because that preserves the hierarchical balance in their view. To them, that was justice.
Okay. And then fast forward to 1776 AD, Philadelphia.
And you get the Declaration of Independence declaring that all men are created equal, endowed with unalienable rights like life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. A completely opposite founding principle.
Both claiming to be universal truths. But they can't both be objectively true, can they?
Well, this is where the source makes a really provocative point. It argues that actually both are wrong in claiming objective reality.
Both.
Yeah. It suggests these principles, hierarchy or equality, only exist in our fertile imagination in the stories we tell ourselves. Biology, it argues, doesn't deal in rights. It deals in evolution, birth, characteristics that change.
So things like unalienable rights or liberty, they're inventions, according to this view.
That's the argument. That liberty is an invented concept, and maybe even happiness is just a modern gloss on the biological pursuit of pleasure. It definitely challenges a lot of deeply held modern
It
beliefs.
certainly does. And you can see the lasting power of these imagined hierarchies in things like the caste system in India.
A prime example, set up thousands of years ago by invaders, dividing society into rigid groups based on occupation, purity, status. You couldn't mix, couldn't marry outside your caste.
And these ideas got baked into religion and mythology.
Deeply, so much so that the hierarchy persisted long after the original reasons were forgotten. And even today, despite laws against discrimination, caste still really influences social life, marriage, even jobs in many parts of India.
Shows how sticky these imagined orders can be. Like slavery in the Americas, too. Justified by myths.
Right. Religious myths like the curse of Ham were used. Later, bogus scientific claims were added, arguing Africans were less intelligent, less moral, prone to disease, all justifying the brutal system.
And these racist ideas didn't just vanish when slavery was abolished.
No, sadly not. They morphed into segregation laws, discrimination, social prejudice. That imagined hierarchy of race created this vicious cycle that lasted for generations, making it harder for Black people to succeed even when legally free, because the idea of their inferiority was still embedded in the social order.
And gender roles, too, right? Our source mentions the puzzle of why women, despite potentially having useful skills for politics or empire building, rarely held those top spots historically.
Yeah, it touches on a possible biological element there, suggesting maybe patterns of male competition for mates led to certain traits like aggression and ambition being selected for more strongly in males, driving them towards power.
A biological tendency.
Which then gets massively amplified and locked in place by cultural myths and imagined hierarchies about what roles men and women should play. So it becomes this self-reinforcing system that's incredibly hard to break. It's this constant interplay between biology and these powerful shared stories.
Okay, let's shift gears again. Two more massive upheavals. The agricultural and industrial revolutions. And the sources frame these as, well, complicated blessings, double-edged swords.
Definitely. Starting with agriculture, around 12,000 years ago, huge shift, obviously. But the surprising thing is, for the average person, it wasn't necessarily a step up. In some ways, life got worse.
Worse how?
Well, diet, for one. Hunter-gatherers ate a huge variety of things. Early farmers relied heavily on a few starchy crops like wheat or rice. That kind of diet was often poor in vitamins and minerals, tough to digest, terrible for your teeth.
Okay, so less nutritious food. What else?
More vulnerability. Relying on one or two main crops means if that crop fails due to drought or disease, you face famine. Hunter-gatherers could usually find something else to eat.
And violence. You mentioned violence earlier.
Yeah, it seems violence really spiked in early farming villages before strong states emerged. Competition for land, stored food. Some studies suggest maybe 15% of deaths were due to violence, even higher for men in some places. It took centuries, millennia even, for larger political structures to bring that internal violence under control.
So, worse diet, more famine risk, more violence.
Yeah.
Why on earth could we do it? Why stick with farming?
That's the paradox. From an individual's perspective, it often sucked. Imagine being that malnourished peasant girl the source mentions. She wouldn't think it was worth it.
Right.
But from the perspective of evolution of the species Homo sapiens, it was a massive success. Why? Because farming, especially cereals, allowed populations to grow exponentially. More food per acre meant more people could survive, even if their lives were harder. More copies of sapiens' DNA getting passed on.
So it's the ability to keep more people alive under worse conditions. That's a chilling way to put it.
It is, isn't it? And there's that fascinating detail about Göbekli Tepe.
The ancient temple site, right?
Yeah. The idea is maybe, just maybe, people started cultivating wheat intensively, not primarily for everyday food, but to support the massive effort of building and maintaining a religious center.
Wait, so the temple came first and farming followed to support it.
It's a possibility. It flips the script. Maybe wheat domesticated us, rather than the other way around, luring us into settled life to serve its needs, which happened to align with our need to build grand structures.
Mind blown. Okay, so agriculture allowed us to multiply. And before the cognitive revolution, we were mostly in Africa and Asia.
Right. But afterwards, with new technology, better organization, maybe those boats we talked about, sapiens start to spread everywhere. The Great Flood, as the source calls it.
And Australia is the prime example. 45,000 years ago, that's incredible,
Hmm.
crossing serious stretches of open ocean.
Yeah, over 100 kilometers of sea between islands at points. They must have been sophisticated sailors. People living in Indonesia likely developed the first proper seafaring societies, building ocean-going vessels. They didn't need to evolve flippers, they just built boats. An amazing technological and organizational leap.
And when they got to Australia, they didn't just adapt to the environment.
No, they started actively changing it, deliberately setting huge fires to clear forests and create open grasslands.
Why?
Easier hunting. Grasslands attract kangaroos and other game. But this fire agriculture totally reshaped the ecology. Fire-resistant eucalyptus trees spread, many other plants and animals went extinct. Climate change was likely happening too, but sapiens arriving seems to have been the final push that tipped a fragile ecosystem over the edge.
So we've been reshaping the planet on a massive scale for a very, very long time.
Seems so. Okay, fast forward tens of thousands of years, the Industrial Revolution. Fundamentally, this was about energy, right?
Yes. Modern economic growth isn't just about credit or ideas. It runs on massive inputs of energy and raw materials. But here's the weird thing the source points out. Even though we use vastly more resources now.
The available amount has actually increased. It seems counterintuitive.
How does that work?
Because science and technology keep finding new ways to tap into energy sources, more efficient ways to use them, and even discovering entirely new materials or energy forms. We get smarter about finding and using this stuff.
So for millennia, we were stuck with wood, wind, water. And you couldn't easily convert, say, wind power into muscle power.
Right. The big breakthrough was figuring out how to convert energy from one form to another easily, particularly heat into movement.
Enter the steam engine. That strange noise in British coal mines around 1700.
Exactly. The principle was simple. Burn coal, boil water, use the steam pressure to push a piston. Voila! Heat becomes motion.
And it started in mines because coal was cheap and plentiful right there.
Yeah, initially they were super inefficient, but perfect for pumping water out of mines. Then they got better, smaller, more powerful. They moved into factories, revolutionizing textile production. And then transportation.
The railways.
Oh.
Liverpool to Manchester, 1830. Just 5 years after the first coal hauling train. That's fast.
Incredibly fast transformation. The Industrial Revolution basically showed us we're living right next door to this, enormous ocean of energy, solar, nuclear, gravitational. The only real limit is our ignorance, our ability to invent better pumps to tap into it.
Knowledge is power, as Francis Bacon said back in 1620. The test of knowledge is utility, what it lets us do.
Right, but what's key is that the tight link between science, understanding how things work, and technology, making useful stuff, is actually really recent, like 19th century onwards. Before 1500, they were often quite separate.
But now they're fused, especially in the military.
Oh, absolutely. The military-industrial scientific complex. Modern wars are science fairs, almost. World War I saw scientists dreaming up poison gas, tanks, better airplanes. Science became central to state power.
Which raises that question. Why Europe? Why did this scientific and industrial boom happen there and not, say, China, which was often ahead technologically for centuries?
It's a huge question. The source suggests it wasn't just about having the tech early on. Remember Zheng? He's giant Chinese fleet, technically superior to Columbus's ships, but they didn't go on to conquer and colonize.
So it wasn't just the tools.
It seems it was also about the mindset. The source argues Europeans developed this unparalleled and insatiable ambition to explore and conquer, driven perhaps by a unique mix of greed and scientific curiosity that wasn't as strong elsewhere at the time.
And capital played a huge role. Money fueling the exploration and conquest.
A massive role. Think about the Dutch and British empires. They weren't just royal projects. They were heavily financed by private investors through joint stock companies.
Right.
The Dutch East India Company, VOC, the British East India Company.
People buying shares, hoping for big profits from trade and colonies.
Exactly. And that worked because places like the Netherlands and Britain had relatively stable legal systems that protected private property. Investors felt safer putting their money there than, say, lending to the French king, who might just default on his debts, which eventually helped trigger the French Revolution. These companies even raised their own armies.
Wow. Okay, so empires, money, trade, eventually science. All these forces start weaving the world together, bringing almost everyone into one global system.
Yeah, the global village idea. We share political frameworks, economic rules, legal concepts, scientific methods across the planet now.
And money is like the universal translator in this village.
Pretty much. It's amazing. It lets you convert almost anything into anything else. Land into loyalty, strength into knowledge, health into justice. The source even mentions prostitutes in the 15th century using money earned from sex to buy indulgences for salvation.
It allows wealth to be stored and moved easily, too, unlike your farm.
Right. A bag of silver coins, initially just stamped metal with no inherent use, becomes incredibly valuable because everyone agrees it's valuable. It's another imagined order, maybe the most universal one.
But there's a dark side to money, isn't there? The source mentions corrosion.
Yeah, the idea that while money connects strangers, it can also wear away traditional bonds, local communities, human values like honor or loyalty. It tries to put a price tag on everything, replacing relationships with transactions governed by cold supply and demand.
So trust shifts from people you know to the abstract system of money itself.
That's the danger. The world risks becoming just one big and rather heartless marketplace. So humanity is always doing this dance, relying on money, needing it, but also fearing it, trying to build ethical or social barriers, dams, to protect things we feel shouldn't be for sale.
And amidst all this change, this globalization, we get this paradox of peace, the last few decades being the most peaceful. That seems counterintuitive with all the turmoil.
It really does, but the data seems to bear it out, especially regarding large-scale state warfare. Since 1945, deaths from war are dramatically lower per capita than in almost any previous era. It's astonishing given how much change we've seen.
Why? What are the reasons?
Two big ones, according to the source. First, the cost of major war just went through the roof. Nuclear weapons basically made war between superpowers unthinkable, a form of collective suicide.
Mutually assured destruction. Maybe.
Right. And second, the profits of war went down. Historically, wealth was stuff you could grab: land, gold, slaves, cattle, easy to loot.
But modern wealth.
It's knowledge, tech skills, complex financial systems, skilled workforces. You can't really loot Silicon Valley effectively by bombing it. You destroy the very thing you wanted. War became less profitable, more destructive.
Okay, but what about all the violence we do still hear about? Crime, local conflicts.
Well, historically, a huge amount of violence wasn't big wars. It was local stuff, feuds, bandits, community clashes. As states got stronger, they gradually suppressed a lot of that internal violence. Police forces, court systems, they drastically lowered murder rates within societies.
So the average person today is far less likely to die violently at the hands of another person than in, say, medieval times.
Statistically, yes, by a huge margin in stable countries. We've sort of broken the law of the jungle in many ways. Peace is so normal in some places, people can barely conceive of a traditional war between major powers like France and Germany anymore.
Which is good, obviously. But this stability, this peace, may be facilitated by the state and the market. It came with another cost, the weakening of family and community.
That's the argument. Before the modern era, your life revolved around family, immediate and extended, in your local village or neighborhood. They were your safety net, your hospital, your school, your bank, your social life, everything.
The state didn't interfere much.
Mostly couldn't. Didn't have the resources or reach. But over the last couple of centuries, the state and the market started offering alternatives. Let us take care of you, they said. Schools, hospitals, pensions, jobs, police protection.
Taking over the functions of the family and community.
Exactly. Which, on one hand, led to the liberation of the individual. You weren't tied to your family's expectations or your village's traditions. Women, children gained more independence. You could choose your own path.
But the flip side.
The flip side is maybe a sense of alienation, loneliness. People lament the loss of those tight-knit communities. Your spouse can leave you. Your friends move away easily. We have amazing freedom, but maybe less deep connection. A lonely world of unraveling communities and families, as the source puts it.
It makes you wonder. All this progress, peace, material wealth has actually made us happier. If community ties weakened, did that cancel out the gains?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the research, combined with ancient wisdom, points to something really interesting. Happiness doesn't seem to depend that much on objective conditions. Wealth, health, even community.
Really? What does it depend on then?
It depends on the gap between your objective conditions and your subjective expectations.
The expectation gap.
Exactly. If you expect a simple life and get a bullock cart, you might be perfectly content. If you expect a Ferrari and only get a decent used car, you feel deprived, even though the used car is objectively way better than the cart.
It explains why lottery winners often don't end up much happier long term.
Right. Their expectations skyrocket. Same in reverse for accident victims. Often, after adjusting, their happiness levels return surprisingly close to baseline. Expectations adjust downwards.
So philosophers thousands of years ago saying be content with what you have were basically onto something profound.
It seems so. Modern psychology is kind of rediscovering this ancient wisdom with data. Being satisfied is more key than just getting more stuff.
Okay, this has been an incredible journey through our past and present. But now we get to the really mind-bending part. The future. The potential end of Homo sapiens as we know it.
Yeah, this is where the sources push into some really speculative but crucial territory. The core idea is that for 4 billion years, life evolved by natural selection. Random mutations, survival of the fittest, no intelligent plan behind it.
Darwin's theory. Giraffes got long necks by chance and advantage, not by design.
Exactly. But now in the 21st century, humans are starting to break those rules. We're moving from natural selection towards intelligent design, our intelligent design.
We've been doing it crudely for a while, right? Like breeding fatter chickens.
That was the first crack, as the source says. The agricultural revolution started it, but now it's getting much more direct and powerful.
How so? What are the pathways?
The sources outline 3 main areas. First, biological engineering, directly messing with biology. We can already do things like sex reassignment surgery, which is a radical change. Scientists grew that ear on a mouse using cow cells.
That was weirdly iconic.
It was, and now they're talking seriously about reviving extinct species, like the mammoth, taking mammoth DNA, putting it into an elephant egg. They think they could have a baby mammoth relatively soon.
Wow. Bring back Neanderthals next.
Who knows? The possibility is there. That's biological engineering.
Okay, what's number 2?
Second is cyborg engineering, merging organic and non-organic parts. Think beyond current cochlear implants or bionic limbs. The military is already working on insect cyborgs for spying, humans directly interfacing with computers in more intimate ways.
Becoming part machine.
Potentially, yes. And third, maybe the strangest of all, engineering inorganic life.
Like robots.ai.
Yes, but potentially more profound. Computer programs, like viruses, can already evolve independently in a digital environment. They mutate, spread, compete. Are they alive in some sense?
That's a philosophical rabbit hole.
It is. And what if you could upload your brain, back it up to a hard drive? Would the program running on the computer be you? Projects like the Human Brain Project in Europe are actively trying to simulate a human brain in silicon. Maybe life itself could escape the organic realm entirely.
Physicists are a lot. Biological tweaking, cyborgs, AI life. What does this mean for us, for society?
Well, one massive implication the source raises is inequality. If medicine stops just curing the sick and starts enhancing the healthy, making people smarter, stronger, living longer, who gets access?
The rich, presumably.
Probably. So you could end up with a future where the gap between the enhanced rich and the unenhanced poor isn't just economic, it's biological. The claims of superiority that upper classes have always made could actually become objectively real. The most unequal society imaginable.
That's a disturbing thought.
It is. This isn't just sci-fi fantasy about warp drives. The real frontier, the source argues, is changing Homo sapiens itself. Our bodies, our minds, our emotions, our desires, what it even means to be human.
Can we even imagine what comes next?
The source tries, suggesting beings perhaps like eternally young cyborgs who don't breed, have no sexuality, share thoughts directly, have superhuman memory and focus, and experience emotions totally alien to us.
Beings more different from us than we are from Neanderthals.
That's the comparison made. We and Neanderthals were at least variations on the human theme. Our successors might be something else entirely. God-like, perhaps.
Which leads to this idea of a new singularity, like the Big Bang.
Kind of. Physicists talk about the Big Bang as a point where our current laws of physics break down, where time itself might not have existed as we know it. The idea here is we might be approaching a historical singularity.
Meaning?
A point in the future where the concepts that define our current existence, self, identity, gender, love, hate, become fundamentally irrelevant or are transformed into something unrecognizable. What happens beyond that point is, by definition, almost impossible for us to comprehend now. It's meaningless to us.
Wow. Okay. That's quite a place to end up. We've covered so much ground, from our energy-guzzling brains and early migrations.
Through the cognitive revolution and the power of shared stories, those imagined orders.
The double-edged swords of agriculture and industry, the unifying force of money.
The strange peace of the modern era, the challenges to community, the elusive hunt for happiness.
And now, this potential future where we might engineer ourselves out of existence or into godhood, heading towards an unknowable singularity.
It's the entire arc of the species, in a way.
So the final question for you, listening, what does all this mean? If history is just this long apprenticeship, this series of experiments, and now we're potentially grabbing the steering wheel of evolution itself, how much control do we really have?
Or are we just, caught up in forces far bigger than us, heading towards a future we can't even grasp?
Definitely a lot to think about.